Sekejap before Sheila start.
Yes.
From the students, ada soalan tak? Jelas.
Okay. Assalamualaikum semua. So I will be giving a lecture on site analysis.
Waalaikumsalam.
Terima kasih. The general guidelines. Yang lain semua ada?
Ada.
Ada ya? Okay. Sebelum kita start, Madam tak sempat tanya semalam macam mana, how did you guys go? Macam okay ke submission semua?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, madam.
Okay, madam.
So sempat ya semua submit on time?
Semua on time, insyaAllah.
Sempat
Kalut sikit.
Kalut sikit, tu normal. Tak architecture kalau tak macam tu.
Benda software crash tu memang biasa ya.
Yes.
Okay lah, Alhamdulillah. 7 grup dapat ya. Lega
15 jam render, madam.
Ya?
15 jam render.
15 jam?
Render.
Oh, dahsyat. Tak sabar nak tengok 3D Jahan ni.
15 kali
17 jam tu dia tak mandi tu, madam.
Aduh. Alhamdulillah. Okay, dah power ni rendering semua kan.
Very good job lah dapat meet deadline semua.
Itulah, Alhamdulillah. Lega dengar. Okay. So, sajalah nak tanya khabar semua sebelum kita start site analysis, nak freshen up kan. Nak suka-suka kita insyaAllah masuk site analysis pula. This is the big bulk of the semester, this project. USIM Student Center kan. So before we start site analysis, I just want to ask, because last semester we did site analysis already kan. So boleh tak kita dapat daripada the floor, what do you understand by site analysis? Mungkin ada sesiapa nak share? Anyone? Senyap pula dah.
Terus mute.
Terus mute.
Come on. Girls sikit, panggil girls tu.
Apa yang dapat dari site analysis?
Apa yang you all faham dengan site analysis ni? Macam from last semester kita dah buat, this semester apa yang kurang faham site analysis tu? What is it?
Apa yang Hajar faham? Site analysis tu macam mana kita nak site analysis tu kita kaji about the climate, topografi, semua benda tu yang akan kita macam mana nak cakap, macam mana kita nak buat building based on site tu, so that building kita tu tak akan damagekan benda-benda tu lah, tak akan bertentangan dengan benda-benda tu. Macam kalau yang topografi, betul-betul kita kena kaji pasal vegetation, pasal wind flow, sun pass apa semua tu. Lepas tu kena tekankan pasal culture sebab kita build satu building untuk society dekat situ. So betul-betul kena faham culture kat situ. Kalau kita tak buat ikut culture, siapa yang akan guna building tu? Situlah. Itu kalau roughly yang saya faham lah.
Alright, so it's good that this semester project you all dekat university, campus you all sendiri yang tercinta kan, USIM. So korang sendiri student kat situ, so korang sendiri tahu site, you are the client, you are the people who understand what you need, okay kan? So I think it's a very interesting project yang you guys will insyaAllah excel, insyaAllah ya. So thank you so much Hajar, very good short explanation. So kita go into the slides. Terima kasih Hajar. Okay, site analysis, general guideline. So terima kasih bagi tahu tadi apa site analysis kan. So preliminary, it's actually a preliminary phase of architecture and urban design process dedicated to the study of the climate, the geographical points, the historical, legal, infrastructural context of a specific site. So in particular to this study, you guys are looking at USIM sendiri. So you would need to understand the climate kat USIM sendiri, the geographical, the contours, kan, the historical. So you look at USIM as an institution, you look at pertubuhan dia, what are they moving towards? Macam kita ada mention tadi, green campus kan. So those are the things that you would need to look into in order for you to understand better what you need to study. Okay. The legal aspects, maybe this is not second year, that might not be there yet, but eventually when you go out, you would need to understand, the bylaws, you would need to understand the authority punya requirements and whatnot. Infrastructure of that specific site, okay? So the purpose of site analysis ni apa? It's understanding the site. Understanding the site is the first step in designing a development and is mandatory part of the assessment process. The purpose of site analysis is to identify how a development responds to the opportunities and the constraints of an allotment and the surrounding streetscape. So you have a piece of land and you also have connections. So you look at the land and the accessibility of it as well. Okay. So what is the importance of site analysis? Kenapa penting sangat kita nak buat site analysis ni sebenarnya? Kalau kita tak buat, kenapa tak boleh kan? So site analysis is one of the most important steps of an architectural design process. Okay, it is common as routine that the architectural students in design studio go to the site which the project is going to perform. So this is what will happen, but because of COVID, of course, we can't have this, which is okay. We work with what we have, all right? So you guys excelled during the first task for the competition. It was non-Shabbat Park, kan? So you can actually go there physically, and similarly for USIM ni pun, you all tak dapat pergilah due to this COVID situation that we are in the middle of, which is okay. So you can, Alhamdulillah, because you guys students, you understand what is the need, you understand better the context, kan? So take that as an advantage. So therefore, site analysis plays a significant role in architecture education process as well. Okay. So site analysis ni juga adalah as active networks, and so site as inert plot. So you look at a building, you look at a plot of land that you have, you look at the boundary, where is your site, how big of site do you have, and what is the plinth of the building itself that you're looking at. And in context of your site, what will that affect then? Do you have, for example, for you guys, it would be a 2-story building. Dikelilingi oleh how many stories of buildings? So what can you get there? Like shadow, will you be getting the shadow of the next door neighbor, which is how will that affect your site? For example, the pusat keusahawanan, which I'm sure you guys are accustomed to, kan? Pergi lunch situ, kan? So dah tahu dah apa yang ada dan tak ada di situ. So take that as an advantage. And the relationship also with your site, the distance between all the buildings and whatnot. Okay, so site as an active network. So you look at also the sun, the wind, the sound that you have on site. So this is how you demonstrate it in a very illustrative way, architectural way. So this is you putting your ideas, your thoughts on or in sketches. Okay, so this is very important in architecture because most often than usual that we communicate our design or our ideas visually. Okay, besides also you need to present it later on, but your presentation or your boards, your ideas, your thoughts would have to be exposed or illustrated visually. Okay, so you need to know how to draw this. Macam mana you nak draw wind? Macam mana, how do you demonstrate sun? How do you demonstrate accessibility? How do you demonstrate noise? Okay, so these are all the symbols, examples of symbols that you can use to demonstrate this, showing site as an active network. Okay, all right, so who do we design for then? Okay, so it's actually a consequence triangle. So you have the users, the students, the lecturers, the administrative people, kan, that uses the university, the campus itself. So you have, they bagi example kat sini, owners, workers, janitors. This is into detail lagi lah. The customers, the passerbys, the renters. This is more general lah. But in your case, it would be the students, of course, which takes up the mass majority population of a campus itself. And you would have the lecturers, you would have the administration people, you have the workers that actually maintain the space. So these are people that you need to understand how they work, how they use the space, what is needed. This is what you need to understand. And the building. So for building, you would have to look at lighting. Kan, structure. What is the structure like? What is the floor like? Okay. What is the ceiling like? What is the mechanical installations like inside? What are the colors of the building? So these are the things that affect a building in a way, yeah. And also the final part, you look at the site itself, the location, the contours, the drainage, the boundary, the trees, the walkways. So this is looking at nature and the existing things that you already have on site. Okay. So going forward, a vital step in design process, evaluation of an existing or potential relation to development program, environmental impact, impact to the community or the users, and adjacent also properties. So how do you, sometimes in a project, you're not building just for yourself. You would want to be able to probably, is the student union, is it a place where when you have visitors, that is where you meet? Is that what happens? And also, sorry, adjacent properties. So you are actually communicating your design proposal, probably not in this example, but your design proposal is actually communicating with the surrounding buildings that you have already on site. Okay, and you would have to look at the budget of the project, which is when you go on working. Budget is of course the most important part. Then you would probably know, like later on, like if you have this much of budget, okay, probably this is what we are capable to do. Okay, this is the limitation. Okay, but how do you then work within that budget? Okay, and also finally the schedule. Schedule sangat penting juga. So you would know the progress of the project itself. Okay. And identifies environmental program and development constraints and opportunity. Yang ini penting, kita akan buat macam SWOT analysis. Kita dah buat last semester kan, SWOT analysis. And also a well-executed site analysis forms the essential foundation for cost-effective. So probably you'd be using materials which is, what do you call it? A longer lifespan. Probably it would be expensive initially, but within the long run, you tak payah nak cat, contohnya kan, you tak payah nak, so it's things like this, cost effectiveness of the particular environmental sensitive, ini penting. Of course, we have a relationship between man and man. This one would fall under man and nature. So you would need to understand nature. You would need to understand how do you develop a development without obstructing or without massive deconstructions of the site itself. So you would need to be sensitive to the environmental situation of the site. Kan? Contoh yang senang kita bagi kan, macam rumah tradisional Melayu pada zaman dulu kan, it was a very good example because they actually built, they elevated kan, it was not built on like ground terus. The reason being is they wanted to have that air ventilation that comes through the floor and is brought out to the top part itself. So it was very environmental sensitive. They understood that wood is the material that you can get easily during that time. And the construction methods, because it was synonym to Malays during that time kan, the traditional Malay house kan. So the construction was very thought through. So this is the things that the advancements of construction methods and whatnot were really looked into. And also you look at the rational approach to project development. Okay, so these are the essential foundations that forms site analysis. So you look at site inventory. Site inventory begins the design process. Architect starts with a visit to the site. Ideally, and a conversation about the vision for the space. So you would go to the site itself and you would look at the surrounding. What do you already have there? Okay, probably, okay, we have a tall building on the left side of the site. And in the front, we have a more public building, a library maybe. So how do we take advantage of that? So you start visioning in your mind also the spaces that you want to have, like maybe on this side, you want it to make it communicate with the site itself. So you have a more public or a more land that can be used for the public, just to get that site context in, communicating with the surrounding. And number 3, we notice areas which create the best views. So you look at also best views. So it's important, for example, when you're designing high-rise, for example, residence, high-rise mixed use or residential areas building. So when we look at this is through Nila. So when we look at how the people actually sell or look at it was found out that if a unit has better view, it will be sold much faster, for example. So it's an understanding of how people work or how people think. Of course, you would want a best view. So how, for an architect, what we need to understand, once we understand that, then you will later on probably try to capture the best views for all the units, for example. So I would be living on the on this part of the building, and I would be able to see KLCC, and if I live on this side, I would have a pool view, a pool view of and it's more inwards looking. So these are the things that architects look at, how to maximize the best views. And then features which need to be preserved. Okay. So what are the things that we need to preserve? Of course, nature is one of the most closest examples that we can have. The directions of wind on site is important as well. Direction in which water flows and collects. spaces that are full sun or shade. Ni macam tadilah dia explain, adakah dia berada di apa, sebelah bangunan yang tinggi dan mendapat shade on a particular site, so it will affect how your building responds to that. And areas in which lend themselves to pathways, gathering spaces, okay, as I explained just now. Okay, so probably okay, so kita go number 4. Other professionals like land surveyors and soil analysts might also visit the around this time to take measurements, pinpoint plant, and also water features, and examine the quality of soil. So what happens actually when you go on for your, when you're working later on, so you would have for example, land surveyors, which would actually give you apa ni, the contour. They bagi tahu what are the the plants that you have on site. Everything, the details on their part, they will give that information to the architect. So the architect will compile this and design according to what you have on site. How do you make best use of what you already have on site? Do you preserve a plant, for example, preserve a plant, an old plant on site? Why? So the architects will rationalize this and eventually have it in their brief, their proposal. All these are all part of site inventories, which are necessary for an effective design analysis. Okay. So this is an example of site analysis sketches and diagram. As I mentioned earlier, it needs to be really visual and demonstrating what your idea, what is on site, what are the best views, where is the wind coming in from, what is your site boundary, what is the sun path like. Okay, so see how, notice that it's all communicated in one single sketch, which is overlapped. Okay, you can also extract this, have it in their own kind, so extracting it, having their own sun path, site boundary, best views. So it's really up to you how you want to put it in your presentation. Okay, so basically the important topics of studies in a site analysis is location, neighborhood context, size and zoning. You would have to look at also natural physical features, man-made features, traffic and circulation, utilities, sensory, human and culture, and also the climate. Okay, so on the right side there is an example of apa ni, sketch or diagram juga tadi but yang lainnya is they already have the proposed design on in the site boundary on the land itself. Okay, so this is how you actually demonstrate why, rationalize why you're doing such a thing, why you're designing on the right side. You have plants. How do you get wind in? How do you have cross ventilation? How do you maximize the sun or and etc. Okay. So location, number 1, location. The site should be related to major streets and or landmarks previously existing. Of course, when you look at location, you would have to look into the apa street there. What are is it adjacent to a street? Kan? What are the landmarks ada dekat keliling tu? Okay, so this is really important, and you would have to have an aerial photograph, which helps in assessment stage. So macam you all can go onto Google Map for your site. Try to obtain this, insyaAllah boleh, dan probably that would be the best for now. And would it be possible, sebab Google Map ada this, you can actually walk on road and getting that view. So this is
Tak
what
semua
you,
vendor.
Tak semua. Tapi hopefully adalah for your side. Kita tengok
USAID tak ada, saya dah tengok. Dia masuk sampai roundabout je.
Dia masuk sampai roundabout je. Allah. Okay, so how you need to be creative then? Going online, can you find that? Google? Bukan Google Map, like Google Photo.
Mungkin treasury baru.
So important lah for you guys to understand the site better in this for this particular ni lah. Okay, we make use of what we have, insyaAllah ya. Okay, there should be documentations of distance, so distance and time for major places. For example, you all need is in the heart of USIM kan. So what is the distance to pusat keusahawanan pelajar? Apa distance kepada Fakulti Syariah Law? Apa distance dia kepada Fakulti Pengajian Quran dan Sunnah? Apa distance dia kepada amphitheater dekat tengah tu? Kan? So these are the things that you need to measure. You can do that also dekat Google Map boleh tu, measure distance. Kan?
Boleh.
Okay, so you get the distance lah, idea of how far everything is. So that will affect your design as well. If you're looking at walkability, you're looking at accessibility, connectivity. And this should be completed by either driving or walking the distance first hand, ideally. So you look at location of the city in the state region. So kita tengok plan kunci kan, key plan. So key plan ni ada by now I'm sure everyone understands what it is already kan. Ada tak sesiapa yang boleh explain apa yang dia faham dengan plan kunci, apa bezanya plan kunci dengan plan lokasi, location plan and key plan? Anyone? Alamak, susah ni, tak faham lah ni Wan Patricia.
Ya, madam.
Okay, apa yang Patricia faham? Apa tu plan kunci dengan location plan?
Key plan ni key plan ni yang nampak semua sekeliling dia ada apa. Kalau plan lokasi ni kita zoom in lagi kan. Macam tu je lah beza dia.
Apa yang penting kalau kita nak apa yang kena ada? Kalau key plan ni kena ada apa? Location plan ni?
Key plan
Both kena ada apa?
Both mesti kena ada site boundary kan.
Demarcation kan, where your location is, tapak cadangan. Lepas tu kita highlight merah bagi semua nampak where the site is. Okay. So thank you Patricia.
Okay.
Zoom in, zoom out. Scale, of course, north point is always important in architecture. So you would orientate the site, the key plan, location plan tu, north is upwards kan. Lepas tu demarcation, red, where tapak cadangan ataupun site you are. Okay. So the location of the city in the state or the region, distance and travel time between site and related locations. So apa distance dia between your site dengan your site dengan landmarks yang ada dekat dalam that region kan. Kenapa pentingnya kita zoom out ni? That is why lah kita nak tengok the relationship. Macam contohnya ada kita nak buat Kita tengoklah landmark yang ada di sekeliling situ, which relates to the importance of having whatever you propose in your design there. Okay, and location of the site in the neighborhood itself. Ni aerial view. So aerial view again sama macam kita buat last semester. Kita kena demarcate our boundary line. Usually it's done in red like this. Because red is most obvious color lah kan. So this is how you demarcate.
Aerial view tu dia ambil yang site plan ke key plan, madam?
Site plan ke key plan?
Yang aerial view ni.
Ni dia ambil location plan ni. Location plan ni lah.
Location plan.
So it's more zoomed in kan. Jauh sangat pula kalau ambil key plan. Kan?
Okay.
Nampak relationship dia kan? Alright. Okay, so of course aerial view tak payah ada scale, tapi when you're looking at the key plan, the location plan normally ada scale lah. Location plan ada scale, key plan kalau dapat lah. InsyaAllah. Lepas tu site plan is more particular to your site sendiri yang you demarcate red tadi tu. So you nampak jalan, macam mana you access, you ada main road, secondary road, you ada later on then you understand site boundary, and then you have also your setback line. Setback line is important because bila it's a road, it's a main road, your setback line would be deeper. If it's next to a secondary road, setback line lain. So this is what you need to refer to when you look at your guidelines by the authority lah. So that will affect your buildable area. For example, you're doing a residential mixed use, you would have to have like 10% of your site, ni according to authority lah 10% of your land needs to be green. And you can only build within that setback line. Tak boleh lebih daripada setback line tu. Okay, so faham tak setback line apa? By now, kita dah go through this last semester, just a refresher lah.
Faham?
So
dia macam kita buat gap daripada site boundary kan, madam?
Ya, betul. So that's actually your buildable area lah. You cannot exceed that setback line. Ada bomber punya requirements pun you need to look at. This you will understand better, I'm sure during your third year, insyaAllah. When you need to go to, you need to understand all this already. In your design, it needs to be thought of. Okay. Terima kasih Aja. Okay, so kita tengok next 2.0 neighborhood context. Neighborhood context is zoning of the neighborhood is important, and the information of this type can typically be found at the municipal planning department of the site. Local authority lah. Boleh dapat information tu. Apa zoning dia, macam adakah dia you would also get like the plot ratio, the density, the height limit. You can, all this information you can actually get from the planning department of that particular site. So if you're building in Subang Jaya, it might not be the same requirements as you're building in Kuala Lumpur, for example. So how do you go about? You pergi dekat planning department for that particular area. That's where you get information on apa yang allowed, apa zoning dia, apa height limit dia. Kalau you bina dekat an area that is near to an airport, for example, right? So you would have this limitation on height. Sebab when the plane actually wants to depart from the airport itself, you would have this, they would have this, I can't remember what it's called, but a flight line yang dia tak boleh exceed that. Sebab kapal terbang tu nak naik, dia kena ada a certain height, height that they need to go off, take off. So they limit the height. angin satu, tapi height of the building tu. Sebab dia nak naik tu, dia bukannya terus boleh naik macam helikopter kan. Helikopter naik vertikal.
Dia data dulu.
Dia macam naik gradually kan. So development dekat sekeliling tu dia pun naik gradually. As you go further from the airport, dia akan lebih lagi tinggi allowance dia. Something like that. Lepas tu we look at numerous issues at this stage that requires direct observation. And then features of this sort include architecture patterns, street lighting, conditions of the existing buildings. Conditions of this, the language that ada dekat existing buildings sekeliling tu pun important juga. So are you kind of like repeating or harmonizing in your design, ataupun you want to do something or propose something that is stark, that is different sebab you nak menonjol. So it's all depending on what your brief, what you want in your design. Okay, but you need to explain this. Okay, so this would also include the intermediate surroundings of the site, the reaction of the surrounding buildings towards the site, the people moving around should be analyzed as well. So this you can understand, you tengok pattern macam mana people move. How do people walk? Do they take the shortest distance? Adakah dia dalam site kita ni dia ada daripada pusat keusahawanan ni, dia actually cross laman hijau, crossing our site to get to the amphitheater. Dia tak lalu dekat walkway, covered walkway yang dah di-provide tu. Sebab apa? Sebab dia paling cepat lah nak sampai, macam tu lah, for example. So I'm sure you guys know already this because you dah biasa dengan this area kan. So this needs to be demonstrated in your design. So what can you take advantage of when that happens? So you boleh cakap biasanya daripada pusat keusahawanan ni dia cross directly to the amphitheater, then eventually going to the fakulti, ataupun dia cross. You study how they walk, the patterns that they walk. So you take advantage in terms of you tak nak break that flow. So you want people to come into that space, so you're maintaining that movement. But you want to attract them to stay longer, so you have activities inside. So that's how you explain. Okay, that's how you make use of movement too. And also when you look at distance pun affect movement juga, connectivity. So distance between the faculties, macam Madam explained just now. So there, what you guys can look into is distance apa yang comfortable to walk. If you are a pedestrian, apa distance yang sedap di jalan, and probably you start penat. What is the distance? There is this distance. This needs to be looked at. When they did Singapore punya underground kan, kalau kita tengok Singapore dengan Malaysia, in terms of connectivity, Singapore memang bagus lah in terms of underground. Dia ada the idea was to have like it's actually a journey, macam along the journey they're getting to one point of to another point. There are the activities along the way which makes it the journey interesting. So how do you create that? How do you create an interesting journey? Okay, so you need to understand how students use space. Apa yang diperlukan? Kebiasaannya dia pergi ke mana dulu? And kenapa? So most probably when would they be using these spaces? In between lectures? Adakah pada waktu malam? Adakah pada waktu pagi? Adakah pada waktu tengah hari pergi makan situ, ada I don't know, like, ataupun a planned situation where you want to have a student event, do you allow that? Ada tak space yang dia boleh book, dia boleh, any student on campus can actually book this space to be used, and tak kisahlah daripada fakulti mana. for example. So this is going back to apa tadi movement so you understand people moving around. Ni penting untuk di-analyse understanding.
Maksudnya madam kita macam kena buat satu kedektif untuk sambungkan student center ni dengan PKP tu dengan kawasan dewan kuliah yang besar tu juga ke madam?
Of course, okay, a building does not, it cannot just be there on its own and macam tak boleh kita nak macam it can work macam tu. Sebab kalau kita tak faham macam mana dia nak work, tak boleh lah kan. Macam mana nak bagi example ya. So okay, apa yang ada kat PKP? Cuba Hajar.
PKP dekat student mall tu dia ada tempat makan, ada koperasi, ada apa ni ATM, ada tempat apa ni
Ayam penyet je.
dekat polis tu.
Ayam penyet.
Ayam penyet.
Jaha makan je, aduh.
Lepas tu ada spa tu, lepas tu ada tempat komputer, macam tu lah.
Okay, so you faham apa yang ada, so probably in your design you would tak perlu ada, kan? Macam logically. So
Tapi madam, kan kalau kan student mall tu kan kecil, so macam tak muat. Kalau kita buat tempat orang macam duduk boleh ke? I mean,
duduk. Okay, I think macam into detail tu nanti kita when we go on to our particular group tu nanti kita akan kupas lagi mendalam lah. Tapi basically the idea is apa yang dah ada kita make use of it, we fully utilize, and apa yang advantages macam kita buat last semester SWOT analysis tu kan. Apa strength dia, apa weakness dia, apa opportunity side kita, apa threat yang ada. So dengan you all understand this, then you can propose better, and then bukannya sekadar ada SWOT analysis ni. Kita kena nampak when you propose your design later on, you guna balik. Okay. So tak apa, nanti kita go into detail bila kita go into group nanti, insyaAllah. Tapi basically the idea is you take advantage of what you have on site, you fully utilize it, and you design in a way that it interacts with the surrounding, insyaAllah. Okay, so the other important components of the neighborhood context include analysis of existing path, ni macam I explain tadi itulah, pedestrian, cyclist, vehicular, and landmarks, the connection between landmarks, the nodes, site. Apa ni landmark, kalau bagi you all landmark apa yang paling yang untuk USIM, apa landmark yang paling dominant?
Untuk kawasan tu ke madam?
Untuk USIM dan kawasan tu lah.
Apa ke Rul?
Dekat kawasan tu kat USIM madam?
Dekat USIM, dekat USIM lah, sebab landmark ni
Chancellery.
Chancellery. Okay. Sekarang ni kita nak jadikan student center ni landmark. Boleh tak? Sebab kita penting sangat student ni. Sebab berapa? What is the percentage? Statistics dia, of course students lagi banyak kan? Kita design ni bagi cantik, bagi jadi landmark. Can we do that?
Yes.
Okay, insyaAllah. So landmark are distinctive site that provides wayfinding for people in the area and which defines the character of a neighborhood. Nodes, on the other hand, are key public gathering places that encourage people to linger and socialize. So adakah dia landmark dan juga node, kan? So existing zoning kena faham projected future zoning, kena faham apa future development yang akan ada dekat USIM tu sendiri, which then will affect your design, sebab you tak nak ada benda yang akan dah dipropose already in future planning. So you understand now and future. Lepas tu solid and void space relationship, kena faham juga. Apa landmark nodes, significant architectural patterns. Okay, so this is an example of how you can demonstrate the neighborhood context. Kan? So kita tak go into detail lah. This is how you can demonstrate it lah. Yeah. So you look at also site size and zoning. Site boundary can be located by either verifying the dimensions physically or contacting the county tax assessor office or local authority. Okay, so you tahu site tu besar mana, tapi in our case ni dah dimarketkan oleh lecturers lah. So you know how big of land you have. It's between 400 to 600 square meters kan. That's the footprint. And you can only build up to 2 meters at 2-story high. Okay. So your design would differ based on what is the ceiling height. Maybe height dia different lah untuk design you. Kalau you ada ceiling height yang lagi tinggi, lagi different lah. And so it will eventually have a different look. Zoning classification, setback lines, height restrictions. Ni yang I explain tadi tu lah. Allowable site coverage, parking requirements. Parking requirements kita in Malaysia dah ada calculation dia lah. So kalau you ada this big of land, this big of plinth area, berapa besar or berapa parking requirements that you actually need. Okay, and for different functions lain pula calculation dia. Okay, so ni semua kena refer to local authority. Okay, on requirement, on parking requirements. Dekat Malaysia, we have a relatively memang sangat murah hati lah dari segi parking requirement ni. I think it's how we are and how we have been brought up lah. So basically like the dream actually is to eventually everyone has a car lah basically. So banyak parking requirements yang kita ada. But in the university, probably we can start with changing the mindsets of people. How do you actually walk more passive movement kan? Macam mana nak promote passive what do you call it? Passive mobility. So kita lain, kalau Copenhagen kan, they are more active in a way. Parking dia pun they limit kan. Okay, kalau dekat Malaysia kita provide 70, dekat sana 15 for the same building, for example. So that's how it is, how the situation is in Malaysia lah, comparing to other countries which emphasize on this active, passive way of mobility. Okay, ni tadi saya dah explain lah, setback line, you have your plot ratio, plinth area, buildable area. Plinth area tu maksud your buildable area. Plot ratio is given by, you can check with the local authority. Height building limit, macam yang explain tadi juga. Street right of way, parking requirement and easement. Okay. So this is an example of on the left two calculations that you would provide to the when you're doing your submission drawings. So akan ada calculation of parking, calculation of, so when you're doing for example residential So it's very important that the developer provides according to apa yang buyers actually want. For example, if you are developing in a transit-oriented development, your proposal would be different from a development where you do not have access to public transportation. Okay, so it will affect how you plan, how you propose. Parking lot, adakah dia lagi sikit? Maybe you provide parking sikit. Is that what the users would probably be accustomed to? Okay. And looking at ni example of apa tadi, the size and zoning lah. So you can see in relationship that 10% of land sekeliling, for example, which is actually according to the building differs and ada dalam requirement. You can see the relationship between the access of the building, which is from the main road masuk, lepas tu pergi mana dulu, why. So if you do not understand this, then you cannot propose your own strategically your own proposal later on. Okay. So adakah you ada double entrance? Adakah you focus on one? How? Why? So semua tu akan effect. Adakah main visitors akan enter from one entrance and services would be from another entrance, from the main road or from a secondary road? So that everything will affect how you actually arrange and how you design your internal spaces. Okay, natural physical features. Most of this information will be derived from the topography features of the site. A contour map of this magnitude can be located from the surveyor, the land, and then drainage problems as well. Existing natural features, you would get information such as trees, ground cover, ground texture, soil conditions of the site. Should also you can also be do a direct observation kat site tu sendiri. Okay, so this is how you demonstrate the important things that you need to look at as well is the contours, major land features, slope, surface drain patterns, ponds, soils, vegetation, and etc. Okay, so this is an example of how you can tunjuk your natural physical features. So what is existing on site already? Okay, and if you're adding, you're planting more trees, probably you're proposing a water feature. So how do you do that? How does it affect the existing natural physical feature that you already have on site, for example? So this is how you demonstrate it on plan. So ni kita dah buat last semester, kita dah tahu dah apa jenis pokok kan, siap dekat tepi pantai, apa yang ada, pokok besar, pokok kecil, tu dah go into detail last semester. So I'm sure you still remember. And this is looking at topography, contour dia kan. So each line represents level, okay, and showing you the actual condition of contour at the site. So how will that then affect this natural physical feature affect your design? So kalau contohnya you're building on a contour, your building would have from the right side top image tu entrance dia kan, and probably on the left side is a different entrance. So it will affect how you enter the building, how you appreciate the building, how you appreciate the space. Okay, so entrance you nak ada for this particular ni, you enter through a a height which is kind of like you want a space introduction that is respecting, and suddenly you move on depan lagi, you get to the space which is double volume, which actually gives you a different feeling to the building. Okay, and you play with the levels. You can see on the left hand side there, because they follow contour, dia dapat floor level dia turun kan. How do you take advantage of that levels? Okay, so this is what you need to understand when you look at apa ni, contour. How do you take advantage of that in your design? Tak silap saya, siapa semalam last semester, the proposal I remember most was mungkin Danish kot. Danish Akmal. He took advantage of the contour of the land, but eventually it was not used, which is okay, but there was a study on that. So how you actually make use of this. Tapi untuk kita punya site this semester, I think it's relatively easy, like it's just a flat piece of land kan. So this might not be relevant for you this semester. Man-made physical features, 5.0. Man-made physical features located on the site such as buildings, wall, fences, patios, plazas, bus stops. Semua ni penting yang dah dibina oleh manusia yang berada dekat sekeliling site you. The site and location of such features should be directly measured. Documentations of the existing historical districts should be made, some of which may already have reports completed. Okay, cuba cari ada tak yang orang dah buat study dah. Can you make use of that? Mungkin boleh tambah lagi kan? Mungkin dah ada information available from previous studies. Locating this information can be done through the municipal planning. Tu salah satu cara juga. But in your case ni, not so much lah. Lepas tu man-made physical features, we look at on-site features and off-site features as well. Okay, so you look at the pedestrian textures, pada sekeliling apa ni you punya ni, what is adakah dia ada pedestrian walkway yang covered, or adakah dia terbuka, how will that affect your design, and then you also have ni for off-site features lah ya. So common details within office punya BART kan. So and you look at also where the visible lighting, for examples, for the site as well, street lights kan. So that will affect how and where you position everything. And then 6.0, we move on to traffic and circulation. Circulation, the uses of streets, roads, alleys, sidewalks, plazas are important in this inventory step. It is not necessarily an analysis of this element, but more of analysis on what occurs on the circulation gateways. So this is a way that you can demonstrate traffic. So the bigger the red is, or the bigger the line is, shows you apa ni, the heavy movement of vehicle on that road. Okay, so that probably would be a main route that everyone uses, and you would have like apa ni, more smaller roads or which are less used. So this is how you demonstrate it in your apa ni, site synthesis. This is one of an example lah. Okay, traffic layout, flow patterns, and then you look at pedestrian walkways, circulation and pattern, density, which shows you human and also vehicular. So that is also important. You have your, you can show where is the pedestrian movement and where is the vehicular. What vehicular do you have on site? Apa ni, public transport would be apa ni, your buses lah kan, yang semua orang naik daripada luar, daripada dalam, and then you also have Grab points kan, apa, drop off points for Grab, kalau untuk SIM sendirilah kan. Dekat mana tempat-tempat tu adalah penting, as it will affect how you your proposal later on. Okay, would you want to propose probably a grab drop-off point at your proposal? Sebab tak ada dekat lagi. Contohnya lah kan. Kenapa? Lepas tu, what is the distance to the bus stop? Juga penting untuk ditunjuk when you're talking about traffic. Lepas tu, you can also note side section, which is the road. So you either, I'll demonstrate later on how you can show that in section. Access road, road system, you ada primary road, secondary road, servicing road, alternative road, distance. So semua ni adalah penting untuk dilihat as it will affect your design. Transportation, public and private, rental, access for each type. Okay, adakah you ada sama je access dia ataupun adakah dia berlainan? Kenapa? So that will be in your proposal later on. This is an example of section site section for road. And so this is important, so you know, you can see the relationship, and you nampak traffic zone, you nampak parking zone, you nampak you nampak traffic zone, lepas tu you nampak this buffering zone, cycling, and you nampak parking zone, you nampak pedestrian zone, and then the periphery and whatever comes after. And also on the left side ni, nampak in a city, which is probably not relevant to yours, but it's important to understand because dia propose kat sini is a just social inclusion, and it's a just system where you have mass transit options, you have pedestrians, you have also individual vehicular options. So you need to understand the reality and also propose a future how it could be. You can see through your design. So you also accommodate a waiting area on the left side situ, nampak dia ada train station where they can actually tram. You have the tram, and then you have a waiting area for the people to get on, get off, and then you understand how people actually circulate, how they use the space. They need to rest. They have sittings. They sit down. You need to cross the road because you have vehicles which is moving on a faster speed. So the users, it will create a more civilized city, people city, livable city. So this is the proposals that we look at lah in your design. Are you proposing this as well? Okay, utilities. So we look at utilities for site analysis. Information for utilities concerning the site can be found through the utility department and also companies in local areas. Okay, generally the company has a point of drawings of this information needed. Okay, information in this print includes the location of all utilities and the location around and on the site itself. Okay. And sensory, much of the sensory information collected will be done through first-hand experience on site. The information is obtained from sketches, photographs, sometimes aerial photographs. Direct observation of other sensory elements such as noise, odor, smoke, pollution areas must also be completed. Okay. Because you already are familiar with the site, so I'm sure that this will not be a problem, inshallah. Sensory. So you have also, this is how you can demonstrate sensory views into the site. Okay, when we look at sensory, you're looking at what you can see, what you can hear, what you can touch. Okay, so it's talking about these elements. Okay, view, what you can view inwards, what you can view outwards is important. And then view qualities from various site positions also important. So in this image here, A is showing view qualities from various points of sight, which is could be considered as in your site analysis. That's the main attraction, main viewpoint yang paling menarik lah basically. So how do you take advantage of that? Okay, so on the top image in the sensory image ni, A is demonstrating from the cross junction looking inwards to the side. He feels that, or they feel that this is the most important view to capture because towards the side, sebab it gives you opportunity. People will be crossing this road here and will look into your side. Tak kisah dia daripada arah mana. Okay, so that would be the point that they see first. And also from the bottom left, bottom right, juga important. It was analysed that it was important. So that will actually affect where you position your entrance. Okay, your access to the site. View quality from various site point, noise, sound and noise. Kalau you punya building to next to an airport, for example, how do you then buffer noise? Would you be proposing on the site that is directly contacting the airport, trees yang tinggi to buffer the sound? Okay, so these are the rationales that we look at. So you understand, ataupun dapur kan, kalau kita design tu membelakangkan dapur, so kita punya right side tu sebelah dia betul-betul is restaurant or dapur orang kan. So how do you then buffer the sound? Okay, the noise. Or if you're building besides an amphitheater, do you want that view to be captured or do you want to buffer your view? Why? So this is the rationale that this is the synthesis that you come up from the site analysis. Also pollution pun penting juga. So of course pollution would be coming from the roads. And for example, the main roads would be contributing much towards the highest pollution areas lah. For example. So this is just images of how you can demonstrate how this is visually demonstrated in your design synthesis. Noise, and then you have airborne pollutions. Paling kuat daripada kiri bawah crossing the site. So the density is shown through a much bigger arrow, for example. So this is how you show. Or you can also take the approach yang kanan, atas dan bawah. Is a different way of demonstrating it. Okay, so these are examples of how you actually demonstrate. And you also have to look at human and culture. Human and culture, this information can be obtained through census statistics. Okay, banci kan, on the neighborhood. If you're doing a neighborhood for USIM sendiri, sebab you all dah biasa dah dengan this area, so you sum up and you find information from the internet. Human and culture. Information regarding these statistics is available from the local municipal planning agency. This information includes activities among people on the site and their relationship with these activities, human and culture. So we look at population, economic generators, what is the commercial, what is the services, and etc. You look at also the density, locals, the tourists, what are the races that we have on site, demography. And you look at also the activity during the day, activity during the night. Okay, adakah pada siang hari je yang padat ataupun siang malam Dua-dua padat tapi function dia jadi lain. So these are the things that we need to demonstrate when we're looking at human and culture. And you start zoning, and then you start understanding also the social issues that we have on site. Okay. So this is a rich image of showing you human and also culture. So this is taking a different approach. Instead of having something like this, we show it through an image that demonstrates or is closely related to what we have and we can find on the site. Dia tunjuk macam ni je. Okay, so you have you understand that it's very personal. You have local sellers on site, which consist of a Chinese community, which are mainly focusing on business of different sorts. So you understand to the picture, you get a glimpse of idea what we have on site. Apa culture dia, apa you start understanding what type of races you have. You have all sorts. Malaysia ni macam-macam kan, but particular to USIM, apa yang kita ada, what are the customs. So you start understanding people, you start understanding culture. Apa jenis makanan, kan? Perayaan yang kita ada, apa jenis, macam tu. Lepas tu 10.0, looking at climate. This information can be obtained through local weather services. Macam kita buat Nansha punya competition hari tu, tengok online kan. Tapi you need to be careful on making sure that references tu adalah reference yang betul lah. And then condition such as yang kita nak demonstrate when we look at climate is rainfall, snowfall kalau ada, humidity, temperature over the month, like different month will give you different temperatures and it will affect your design as well. Sun path, kan, the vertical sun angles throughout an entire year is important to note. Okay, so ini contoh-contoh on how you can the information should be demonstrated lah. So ni kita dah buat during our Nansha punya ni kan. You ada your wind rose chart tu, and so it shows you at the top shows you sun path, and then you can also see how the shades the shadow becomes the casting of shadow when we have a particular height of building and a particular form of building in mind. So you position your building, and through that study you can understand what will happen throughout the year. Okay, so ni adalah cara juga yang korang boleh show when you have an idea of what type of massing that you're looking at. Okay, so sun path, wind prevailing, rainfall, humidity, potential natural catastrophes. So macam kita buat Nansha hari tu, it might be exposed to typhoons, so it will affect how the building is. And for example, taking Japan kan, Japan is actually diorang are on gunung berapi they have a lot of earthquakes. So the structures of the buildings, the technology that they propose actually can absorb that shock to an extent lah. So if it exceeds the extent, the building will eventually jatuh jugalah. But they understand that usually it's this, that is the ni. Lepas tu they allow at the jointings kind of like an absorption of that. So it's looking at how you have the condition and apa technology structurally you're proposing. So that is looking into natural catastrophes lah. Tapi for USIM kita tak ada kan, kita bukannya berada di gunung berapi punya line, alhamdulillah kan. Tapi we have a lot of rain. So how then? We have a lot of sun. So how do you take advantage of that? Okay. And we also have high humidity kan. Kita punya condition kan. Lepas tu berpeluh kan. So how do you do that then? How do you take advantage of strong wind as well? So what is finally, then from everything that was presented just now, how do you then do synthesis? And so synthesis ni is defined by other people in all sorts of way. Cambridge Dictionary says that its synthesis is actually the production of a substance from simpler materials into a chemical reaction. Okay, from satu benda yang asas, lepas tu ada apa ni? Ada hubung kait and then ada chemical reaction, ada tindak balas di situ kan. Lepas tu Oxford Dictionary pula dia kata the combination of the components or elements to form a connected whole. The synthesis of intellect and emotional in his work, often contrasted with analysis. Lepas tu tapi in general analysis ni could be defined as the procedure by which we break down an intellectual or substantial whole into parts or components. Okay, so it's actually from something that is obvious, you start breaking it down, you start breaking the components down. Okay. Synthesis is defined as the opposite procedure to combine separate elements or components in order to form a coherent whole. Okay, so examples: view through sight, wind, rainfall, sun path. So ni semua sight synthesis and sight condition on the top. Lepas tu, in your individual proposals, you would have to respond. So design response to the context. So rationale of having your building, how, where, and how, why. Okay. So dia tunjuk kat sini dekat atas site condition. So you don't have your building yet. It's just understanding what is the site. What on the site apa yang you ada. And bottom tu is when you position your building, why? How are you taking advantage of the site condition? And then finally, you would have to also do SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis is a strategic planning method used to research external and internal factors which affects company success and growth. Firms use SWOT analysis to determine the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threat of their firm, for example, products and also competition. So similarly, architects use this as well. We have to look at strength. We look at the current internal positive factors that exist within the site. Okay, we look at opportunity, future external positives. So factors that exist or might exist within the site context or surrounding areas that will have effect on your site or project. Weakness, you look at current internal negative factors that exist within the site. Okay, apa yang dah ada yang negatif dekat site tu sendiri. Threats, kita tengok future external negative factors that exist or might exist within the site context or surrounding areas that will have effect on your site. Okay, so SWOT analysis sangat penting. Again, diagrams, I'll just go briefly through this, but I'll attach this later on, and then you guys can have a look balik lah. So ambience condition, open spaces, views, pedestrian circulation. This is how you demonstrate diagrammatically. And then you have a study of contour. Lepas tu you nampak through section and relation from the diagrams. Relation between diagrams, reference drawings. So you have initial diagrams, and you have also later on refined diagrams, probably relations between diagrams and boundaries. Again, so contour, and then you also have major trees on site. This is site use components. So this is how you can sum up or start designing and rationalizing why you want to have things where. So site use components, I'll just go through the access to parking, building entrance, and building, outdoor play area, parking, service courtyard. You have the covered play area, overlooking play. This is an example of a particular building lah. And then you start looking into form. Can you start looking into form where everything can be positioned and how will it affect? Can if you position it here, what happens then? If you position it there, what happens on plan? And then you start looking also in section. If you have a contour difference in height, how does that affect then? Probably your entrance would be from the top or from the bottom. Why? Okay. And then you have also site use alternatives. Develop facade in response to movement. Develop corners in response to monuments. Kan? So adakah dia betul-betul berada di bucu? Adakah dia perpendicular to bucu? Adakah dia so it will give a different impact and effect on how movement is on your site and how you appreciate the building itself. Are you having the building looking inwards ataupun looking outwards? Kalau kita tengok universiti pada zaman dulu kan dia banyak ada madrasah, banyak courtyards. So the idea was kind of like protecting and having this view inwards, and everyone would use the center part, and interaction will happen. That was the ni lah. So the thing about universities is, kalau you ada university, there was this comment. I'm not sure lah whether it's true or not, but how previously saya datang daripada, I did my part 1 dekat UiTM Shah Alam kan. So we had this courtyard kind of like feel tau. So how that actually affected us, I think in a good way, is because we communicated with the people, the users, macam daripada studio 1, studio 2, studio 3, kita jumpa seniors. So interaction tu ada. So human nature ni memang interaction sangat penting. Kita visual adalah sangat important. Bila kita nampak orang, it gives us a different feel. Dengan kalau the building is designed in a way that you can actually see people, and masing-masing masuk ke bilik masing-masing kan, so it's different feel. So this actually is our role as an architect, to actually design and formulate a solution to best for the betterment lah. So understanding the students' needs, how you can actually achieve that is important. So if you look at examples of student unions overseas, usually it's a shared space, very open, very public. And lepas tu dia ada pula like this amphitheater or kind of like stage where probably events can happen, like ada presenter dekat depan, and students can actually come and sit down and listen, and it's always like public, sebab it's like the idea of having ideas shared, dissecting, disseminating knowledge, that idea is there. Okay. So it's like an open discussion, like siapa-siapa je boleh join, for example. So you have it very public, but also you would want areas which are more private discussions, can maybe serving a different function. Okay, so understanding apa yang korang perlu dan apa yang how you best propose that is important. Tu site model, of course, site model sangat penting, and it's part of the requirement that you need to propose later on, whether it's virtual ataupun physical. Yang pentingnya ada, dan you can actually put your design in later on. So this is an example of model that was done, which had a lot of contour lah. So material, they use papan and then they start cutting it. So sekarang teknologi sangat bagus kan. So I remember during my final year dekat when I was doing my part 2, we actually cut the planks of wood ni pakai laser cutter, like each and single ni. So what we did was we actually had to draw each piece in AutoCAD, lepas tu send it to a laser cutting machine. So that's how detailed it is. So in architecture, of course, workmanship is really important. Apa ni, quality, ya. InsyaAllah. This is an example of using cardboard, which can also be done, which is more simple and apa ni, easily accessible. You just use your cutters and then material cardboard pun senang nak dapat ke mana-mana. So what I want to say here is just be creative with material. Okay, we would have a lot of options of material. Jangan kita tengok sini kita pakai ni kan, oh cantik, tapi kita tak berani untuk mencuba nak try material lain. So insyaAllah beranikan diri. If ada you tengok sampel kat tempat lain buat guna box board ataupun they carve guna 3D printer, so you want to try that, try it. So let's push the boundaries and think out of the box, insyaAllah. All right, so references, these are just the references that we looked at. Site analysis, site planning and design handbook, Edward T. White, Thomas H. Russell, and then site analysis by James A. LaGros Jr. Okay, so you can find this online. There's the PDF as well, inshallah. So have a look at it, read into it, okay, for you to get a more better understanding, inshallah. So last kali, every group project in school that we have ever done, of course, kita datang daripada different backgrounds, kita datang daripada different school of thoughts, kita datang daripada different basically understanding of things. And so how do you make use of that? Kan? How do you actually, so it's telling you the story of does 90% of the work, kan? And then the other person has no idea of what at all is going on at the whole time of the project. Tak ada idea langsung, tak ada input pun. First yang kat belakang tu says he's going to help, but he's not. Okay. Lepas tu yang paling kanan disappear at the very beginning, doesn't show up again till the very end. Okay, so kita what I want to say here is kita nak belajar tu, kita belajar sungguh-sungguh kan. So masing-masing tahu responsibility masing-masing. InsyaAllah we try to contribute as much as we can and that we can for the group, insyaAllah ya. Atau kita, kalau kita nampak kawan-kawan kita struggle, tolong. Kita nak batch year 2 ni, kita start sama-sama, habis sama-sama, insyaAllah ya. Itu je yang Madam harapkanlah, insyaAllah. So that's all from me, insyaAllah. Good luck on your site analysis and also design project for this semester, the student center. InsyaAllah. Assalamualaikum.
Salam.
Waalaikumsalam.